Welcome to Job Talks Access. Today I'm with Matt Kelly, who is an accessibility analyst at Fable. How are you doing, Matt?
Not bad, pretty good.
Great, yeah, thanks for joining us today. Wonder if you could tell us a bit about what you do at Fable.
As you mentioned, I'm a accessibility analyst. So what that means is I help companies decide or develop their assistive websites. So let's say they wanted to make their website more accessible, they can reach out to Fable and we will help them through the majority of the process of making sure that their website not only is functional, but also is actually up to all of the code for development for accessibility, because there's a lot to that. There's a whole bunch of principles that me personally, I'm not a developer. I don't know a whole lot about, but I know that they exist. And my goal is just to let companies know when something works and when something doesn't, and kind of help talk them through what they could do to improve it.
Right. And I feel like that's important because not everyone knows what all is involved in making a website or an app accessible. Could you maybe tell us about some of the most common errors or areas you have to address as far as making someone's website fully accessible?
One of the main things that I focus on, or that I've come across, is things like whether or not an image has proper image descriptions, or let's say you're dealing with a clickable image. So a good example of something like that would be you have an updating graph based on whether or not you click certain checkboxes, but the checkboxes, instead of just being on the page as a text element, sometimes people will put them in as part of the image and make part of the image clickable, but not actually add alt text for it, or so then something like a screen reader can't pick it up. Because I'm actually an interesting use case even within the Fable community, at least that's what I've been told. And it's because what I am is I'm a magnification and screen reader user. I use speech for the majority of panning around on my computer, and then I have magnification as well. So if I know specifically what I'm looking for, I will probably use magnification to find it. If I'm trying to actually go through my whole web page, then I'm going to rely on speech, and hopefully that'll work out. But obviously, if something's not developed quite right, then my speech software is not going to pick it up, and it will be an element that I won't know exists on your page.
Right. And obviously, people reach out to you to make their website accessible. I'm just wondering how common it is of people to not reach out, or do you come across a lot of websites that aren't accessible that should be?
It really depends on what kind of website they're developing.
Okay.
If they pretty much built it as just a straight text website, then for the most part, everything should be pretty accessible. Where we run into trouble and we start to, at least I start to see issues, is when developers, get the idea, hey, let's put a whole bunch of flash or a whole bunch of images on this page and make it a really good graphical experience,
Right.
which is great, because that's, for the most part, like you need to make something that people want to click on. But then when you're focusing on making it visually look good, then you also need to try and balance the accessibility, and that's what we help to do.
The more complicated the website is, maybe the tougher it is to make it fully accessible.
Exactly, because let's say if you just have a plain text website, well, plain text is plain text. It should be pretty much fully accessible. But when you start adding images and tables and links and dealing with heading structure, video, the more complicated the website you want to build, the more work that needs to go into actually making it accessible.
Right.
Because you could get it where, let's say it's a video, you could get it so that the name of the video is read out, but the playback controls, if they're not coded properly, then they could be non-existent to a screen reader user.
Mm-hmm. Right. And as far as your personal experience with Fable, what would you say you enjoy most about the job you have now?
Honestly, the thing I enjoy the most is the experience of helping people develop or like come up with ideas on what they can do to improve their project. Because as kind of a computer technician myself, I've built a couple of computers, I've done a lot of troubleshooting, and my favorite thing is to actually get that sense of accomplishment when something you've been working on for hours isn't working, and you finally figure out that one piece that puts that puzzle together and gets it working. It's a great feeling for me, and the only feeling I find better is the feeling that you just helped somebody solve their puzzle.
Yeah, a lot of problem solving involved.
Yeah, it can be, yeah, because that was one of the things I originally, when I was going through school, I thought about taking computer maintenance because it just sounded like something I would be really interested in, because I love dealing with technology. I love fixing problems, but I didn't end up doing it because it seemed like it was very visually intensive, and while the school could probably adapt it, I would probably get a much different experience in the course than somebody who didn't have any of the accommodations done in the course. And if that's the case, well, am I really getting all of the knowledge that I actually need, or am I getting a hindered version of it?
Right.
So then while I moved over and kind of just took a general course in college because I didn't really know what to go through to from there. And while in college, I ended up doing a lot of testing for their internal systems for their staff and students. And that's when I realized that I wanted to be a part of building and allowing accessibility to become more prevalent in society, because it's really important. And as somebody who relies on, companies developing things and making them more accessible, I kind of need to just be a part of it, because it's important for everyone to have their voice heard, and, for them to actually give their input.
Definitely. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, just the path you took. You mentioned choosing what you wanted to do in high school, college, and I'm wondering how you got to where you are now as an analyst.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I did a lot of accessibility testing for my college, and because of that, it kind of sparked an interest. I already had an interest in accessibility tech because I used it on a daily basis already.
Right.
But troubleshooting accessibility problems and helping people fix those kind of made me realize that I wanted to be a part of, growing the accessibility technology sector and kind of helping with that. Originally, I wasn't looking into, when I first started looking for work, I didn't think to look in the accessibility side of things. I just looked for a normal job. But I think the thing that kind of sparked, hey, I really should start pushing more for the accessibility side of things, is I applied for a job. I got the interview, and before I could even actually have the interview, the girl that running the interview noticed that I was visually impaired and had concerns about the specialized equipment that I would have to use to actually do the job. And she showed it to me, and obviously because it was a 2-inch screen with no accessibility built into it that I could tell in the 2 seconds I looked at it, I still went through the interview process with her, so I at least had, because she had already booked the time slot anyways, so I got that experience behind me. But obviously I didn't get the position just because of both of our concerns about whether or not I'd be able to actually, use the equipment. And I think what happened after that is I realized that I really needed to become a part of the accessibility side of things and drive more education for companies to learn what they can do for employees that either already are working with them or that might come in that need assistive tech, because I don't want somebody else to go through the process that I did, just because it's a challenging process. Because you get that interview, you think, all right, this is good. You meet them, it all seems to be going well, and then because of the technology side of it, that's why you don't end up getting it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear that somebody else I know, or even if I don't know them, I don't want to hear anything on the internet of somebody not getting a position just because of the technology. I want to help push the education towards companies so that they know what kind of stuff they can actually get to help, their team members, and also educate them on how they can get it, because a lot of governments offer assistance, or at least they did when I was first looking into signing up with ODSP. They told me that they would help any business that I started working at. They said they would help them try and find a way to get equipment that would assist me, but yeah.
Right. And to your point about running into some of these barriers, would you say you've noticed an improvement over time in any of these things?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have noticed an improvement. Obviously, certain areas of the world or certain countries are going to be better suited for, hiring people with disabilities, or the supports that are put in place for people with disabilities and getting work, and the employers and helping them. Still has, in my opinion, a pretty decent way to go, but we're on the upward. We're heading upwards. It's no longer rock bottom for that.
Right.
We're coming up, and it's going to become something more helpful.
For sure. Yeah, I love all the great work you're doing. In your opinion, what would you say is the next best step for us as far as accessibility?
I guess the next step is just to continue the education for the businesses, and I guess not just businesses, but people with disabilities, letting them know there's all kinds of equipment and ways that you can actually find work and, participate in society and live a fulfilled life. It's
Right.
just, it's going to take more, it's going to take more effort than, people might expect.
Right. Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Thanks, Matt, and thanks for helping us with the project, coming on and sharing some of your story.
Not a problem.
That was Matt Kelly, and I'm Paul Vandergrent. This has been another Job Talks Access.